Salutations to all you Fire Emblem fans. We are Done with 1 and Mekkah.
Hello.
And you're watching Chapter 13 of my Fire Emblem 7 Hector Hard Mode 0% Growth playthrough. Chapter 13 is this campaign's first siege map, and ostensibly it gives you the option of multiple different ways to approach the gate. You can either start by going left, crossing a couple of snags, and then going down. You can start by going down, facing a bunch more enemies, and then crossing a bridge. Or you can even try any weird shenanigans like trying to get Hector to walk across a river. But the way that we go is more or less determined by our starting positions, and if you play Hector Hard Mode from a fresh save, Marcus always starts in the bottom right tile, and because he's our most mobile and best unit, that means that we start by going down.
It wouldn't be a siege map in a Dawn playthrough without a bunch of confusing rescue chains. They make sense in the grand context of the strategy, but they look a little bit weird. We rescue dropped Lowen with a bunch of units with less move than he did, and we also rescue dropped Sarah in range of an enemy brigand, even though we complained last chapter that she was terrible in the enemy phase. The reason Sarah is here is because we need to heal Marcus on turn 2 player phase, because turn 2 enemy phase is very dangerous for him. He has a better chance of survival if he is at full HP. And the reason that this rescue chain occurred is because we need to get Hector to the throne, but we don't want Marcus to be weighed down by Hector as he's fighting a bunch of enemies, because that will cut his speed in half. So we have to find ways to rescue drop Hector over there. It also has to do with one of the side objectives of this chapter, which is recruiting Guy using Matthew. Matthew is pretty fragile. He has 6 move, but it can be pretty tough to get him near enemies safely. So we have to make sure that he can be rescue dropped in the right place as well.
Yeah, and Matthew also doesn't have enough movement by himself without a rescue drop to get in range of being able to recruit Guy on turn 3, so that's why we have to boost Lowen a little bit and also use Marcus to help drop Matthew. It's also the reason why Marcus can't use Lone Ruri on turn 2, because he's busy doing a drop command, and that's why we had to have Sarah heal him on turn 2 instead. Now, the precarious part about this enemy phase is that Guy has a killing edge, because he's one of those archetypal early Myrmidons that's very edgy, both in terms of character and in terms of his starting weapon. So, as long as Marcus dodges that killing edge crit, then he can pretty reliably survive the rest of his enemy phase. He still has to dodge a few more enemies though, because he wants to end this turn above a certain amount of HP so that he can survive a hit from the boss. And to do so, our options are basically equipping him with a hand axe or with a javelin. The hand axe gives him better hit rates against all of the other enemies that are not Guy, whereas the javelin would give him better hit rate against Guy in particular. So we basically just assume that he gets hit by the killing edge, but try to get him to dodge a few of the other enemies.
Yeah, we have to be very careful rationing our 1-2 range weapons here. There is an armory that sells javelins and hand axes, but we don't reach it. So all we have to work with is Barter's hand axe, which is what Marcus is using. Hector's hand axe, which is probably half depleted by this point because he's been using it for so long. And Osmond's javelin, which he needs by himself. We drop Hector in siege range in turn 4, which is pretty good. Fortunately in this game, the gate doesn't cost any movement to move over for Hector, so we can move him exactly 5 tiles away. Next turn, Marcus just needs to kill the boss. And meanwhile, Rebecca, Eliwood, and Oswin are occupied with making sure Eliwood makes it to the Torch Village. This is needed to unlock the Gaian chapter by talking to Myrnus, giving him a torch, and that way we can go to 13x. Fortunately, Eliwood and Rebecca are very, very bad at dealing with this one Cavalier, but with their combined efforts, they just barely managed to kill him.
Good thing that Oswin was there to help out, because he did like half the work, and he also diverted the Pegasus Knights away from Eliwood, which would have killed him if left unchecked. The other village in the map contains a mine, and it's a very important village if you were playing this game with the control enemy glitch, because it's one of the only items that allows you to unconditionally set it up. For us, it's just going to be a regular old mine that's used to do 10 damage or something and maybe interrupt his movement, so not nearly as impressive, although it does help us much later on. A couple other things to note that would set this strategy apart from a Gross playthrough. The first is the Cavalier that was blocking Hector's way. Hector normally could one-shot him if he gained 3 points of strength, but here he can't. And our bosskill strategy is also pretty unreliable. It relies on Marcus getting a low % Iron Axe crit, which is a place where the secret book ends up coming in handy. And the reason for this is because we don't have any tools to cleanly 2-hit KO the boss. We don't have any effective weapons that Marcus can use, so he has to get either a crit from the Iron Axe or, like, for example, a double killing edge crit, and in this case a single Iron Axe crit ends up being more reliable, especially if factoring in the higher accuracy due to the gate and the weapon triangle. So that's chapter 13 finished in 4 turns, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.